Before the flood, the world was nothing like you've been told. Not a peaceful garden, not a simple age of shepherds and farmers. It was a world so corrupted, so unnatural, so terrifying, that God himself declared, "It repenteth me that I have made them." Genesis 6 verse 6, KJV. Let that sink in. The creator of heaven and earth regretted creation itself. That's not the story most churches tell. That's not the image of a gentle past. So what was happening in those days? What kinds of beings walked the earth before the flood? Why does Genesis whisper of giants, but refuse to name them plainly? What forbidden knowledge did humanity unlock that demanded divine erasure? Did angels really descend? And if so, what did they create? Why do ancient myths across the world, from Mesopotamia to the Americas, speak of gods mingling with mortals? And most chilling of all, could the pre-flood corruption be returning in our own time? Welcome to Mysteries of Zion. Here, we strip away the veil of tradition and uncover the truths buried for centuries beneath silence. If your spirit hungers for revelation, subscribe and stay with us. Because tonight, we walk into the shadows of a world God himself destroyed. Genesis 6 verses 1 to 2 declares, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." Who were these sons of God? Why does Scripture separate them from men? The Hebrew calls them B'nai Elohim, a phrase used for heavenly beings, not mortals. Angels, watchers. Verse 4 continues, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown." But this is only a whisper. The book of Enoch dares to reveal the rest. It names the angels. It describes their descent. 200 beings swore an oath upon Mount Hermon to corrupt humanity. They taught sorcery. They revealed the art of war. They gave women secrets of seduction. And their offspring, the Nephilim, monstrous giants, abominations, eaters of flesh, destroyers of men. Enoch records their towering size, their violence, their endless appetite. Even the earth itself cried out against them. The pre-flood world was not innocent. It was infected, hybrid, polluted by creatures never meant to exist. And yet, here lies the mystery. If the flood erased all flesh, why do we find giants again in Canaan, in Gath, in Bashan? How did they return? What secret is Scripture hinting at, but not revealing? If the flood was meant to erase every trace of corruption, why do the giants appear again? Why does Numbers 13:33 record the fearful report of Israel's spies? "And there we saw the giants, the sons of Enoch, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." How? How could they exist after God's judgment drowned the earth? Some argue the seed of corruption returned through the wives of Noah's sons. Could one of them have carried tainted blood? Others believe the fallen angels descended once again, repeating their rebellion after the waters subsided. But perhaps the darkest possibility of all is survival. Could some of the giants have endured the flood itself? Legends from Mesopotamia speak of monstrous beings clinging to mountains, escaping divine judgment. The Sumerian king list records rulers whose reigns stretched thousands of years before the deluge, and kings who mysteriously continued after. The Bible itself gives us fragments. Deuteronomy 3 verse 11 describes King Og of Bashan as of the remnant of giants. Remnant, a survivor, a trace of the old world hidden in the new. Do you see it? The story of the flood was not only about cleansing sin. It was about erasing something unnatural, something that should never have existed. But if traces survived, if remnants remained, then the world we know is still haunted by the shadow of the pre-flood age. The Watchers did not only corrupt bloodlines, they corrupted knowledge. Enoch tells us they revealed to mankind the cutting of roots, enchantments, the motions of the stars, the secrets of weapons. Azazel, one of the leaders, taught men to forge swords and knives, bloodshed made into an art. He revealed the crafting of shields, breastplates, jewelry, vanity, and violence joined hand in hand. Think of it, a world without war, a world where humanity was still young, innocent. And then, suddenly, angelic beings hand them steel, hand them fire, hand them blood rituals and sorcery. The result? Violence filled the earth. Genesis 6 verse 11 says it plainly. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. The corruption was not just physical, it was spiritual. Mankind had been given secrets never meant for human hands. Secrets that turned them against God and against each other. And yet, the echoes of that forbidden knowledge never disappeared. From Babylonian astrology to Egyptian magic, from Grecian myths of demigods to Aztec tales of sky beings, the fingerprints of the Watchers remain. Could it be that our modern world is simply rediscovering what the Watchers once revealed? Could technologies we call progress be nothing more than recycled whispers from the pre-flood age? Weapons of destruction, manipulation of flesh, knowledge stolen from heaven, twisted on earth. Is history repeating itself? The flood may have ended the first chapter, but the story is far from over. After the flood, the world should have been pure, a new beginning, a cleansed earth. But when Israel entered the land of promise, what did they find? Giants, Nephilim, remnants of the old world, still alive. Numbers 13:32, 33 records the spies' words with trembling. And all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Enoch, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. How could this be? The flood had wiped the earth clean. Yet in Canaan, giants thrived. Deuteronomy 2 verse 20 speaks of the Zamzummims, a people great and many and tall as the Anakims. Deuteronomy 3 verse 11 tells of Og, king of Bashan, the last of the Rephaim, whose bed measured 13 feet long. Is this coincidence? Or evidence that the pre-flood corruption had not been erased? Consider this. Why did God command Israel again and again to utterly destroy certain tribes? The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. Why such ruthless instruction? Why no mercy? Could it be that these nations carried the blood of the Nephilim? Could the command to wipe them out have been more than judgment? Could it have been purification? Joshua 11 verse 21 says Joshua cut off the Anakims from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. This was not just conquest. It was cleansing. It was the continuation of the war God began with the flood. But here's the chilling truth. Not all of them were destroyed. 2 Samuel 21 records the giants who rose against David and his men. One had 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. Another wielded a spear the size of a weaver's beam. And then there was Goliath of Gath, the giant who mocked Israel, only to fall by the hand of a shepherd boy anointed by God. Do you see the pattern? From Genesis to Samuel, the giants appear like shadows, reminders of the pre-flood age that refused to die. The flood was judgment, but the infection endured. The Nephilim bloodlines slithered through history, rising again in the land promised to God's people. And if remnants survived the waters, if their seed passed from age to age, then we must ask the most dangerous question of all. Where are they now? Are the giants gone? Or do they walk among us still, hidden beneath new names, cloaked in new forms? When Jesus spoke of the end times, he didn't compare them to the days of Moses, nor the days of David, nor even the days of Babylon. He pointed back further, all the way to the beginning. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24 verse 37. Why Noah? Why the flood generation? Because Jesus knew what was hidden there. The corruption, the mingling, the rebellion of angels and men. The secret knowledge that was never meant for humanity. The book of Enoch, though not included in most Bibles, sheds light on this mystery. It claims the Watchers taught mankind enchantments, weaponry, sorcery, astrology, and root cutting, forbidden knowledge. Knowledge that corrupted the earth and brought violence to its peak. So when Jesus said his return would be like Noah's day, he wasn't just talking about people marrying and feasting. He was warning us that the same forces that defiled the old world would return. Look around today. Are we not seeing a flood of forbidden wisdom rise again? Genetic manipulation, artificial intelligence, experiments to merge man with machine, attempts to tamper with the very code of life, DNA. The ancients sought to create hybrids of man and angel. Today, mankind seeks to create hybrids of flesh and technology. It is the same spirit, dressed in modern clothing. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9 says, "There is no new thing under the sun." The corruption of Genesis is the corruption of today, only more refined, more deceptive, more seductive. Could it be that what was once destroyed by water will again provoke judgment, this time by fire? The Apostle Peter ties it all together. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment. 2 Peter 2 verses 4 to 9. Notice Peter doesn't just mention the flood, he mentions the angels. The connection is deliberate. The end-time judgment will mirror the first judgment, which means we are closer to Noah's world than we dare to admit. In Noah's time, humanity laughed at prophecy. They mocked the ark. They scoffed at the warnings, until the rain fell, and the waters rose, and it was too late. Today, prophecy is mocked again. Warnings are ridiculed. Truth is silenced. And all the while, the same spiritual darkness creeps back into the world. The forbidden knowledge, the rebellion of flesh and spirit, the rise of corruption as in the days of old. And Jesus said, "When you see these things, look up, for your redemption draws near." But what if the story is not finished? What if the same bloodlines, the same hidden powers that moved before the flood, are orchestrating events even now? The question isn't just, what was the world like before the flood? The real question is, are we living in it again? The story of the flood is not just history. It is prophecy, a shadow cast forward into our time. Because before the waters came, there was a hidden war. Not just men rebelling against God, but angels, fallen and furious, determined to twist creation itself. It was a cosmic rebellion, a calculated defiance against heaven. And humanity became the battlefield. Genesis says the earth was filled with violence. But in Hebrew, the word hints at chaos, corruption, even genetic ruin. The world was no longer what God made. It was a distorted mirror of creation, something darker, something alien. And God said, "My spirit will not strive with man forever." That was the limit. That was the line. When corruption crossed into the essence of life itself, judgment had to fall. Now we stand in an age where science boasts of rewriting the code of life, where power-hungry nations race to weaponize knowledge, where artificial intelligence whispers promises of godhood, and men say, "We will become as gods." Haven't we heard this before? The serpent's lie in Eden, the watcher's corruption before the flood, the rebellion that has echoed since the dawn of time. It's repeating, and the question isn't if judgment will come, it's when. But here is the mystery the fallen ones could not erase. Even in Noah's day, God preserved a remnant. One man who walked with him. One family chosen, not for perfection, but for obedience. And through that obedience, God kept alive the promise that would one day crush the serpent's head. The ark was not just wood and pitch. It was a prophecy of Christ, a picture of the one true refuge from the flood of judgment. Just as Noah entered the ark and was lifted above the waters, so all who enter into Christ will be lifted above the fire of the last days. This is the hope hidden in the story no one tells. The flood was not just destruction. It was also salvation, a doorway pointing to the cross. So when we ask, what was the world like before the flood? We're not just asking about the past. We're asking about right now. The same forbidden knowledge is rising. The same corruption is spreading. The same laughter and mockery are filling the earth. But the same God still calls, still warns, still offers an ark. The world before the flood was terrifying, corrupted, beyond redemption. But God's judgment was not the end of the story, and neither is it for us. The hidden truth is this: the flood was a warning, yes, but it was also a prophecy, a reminder that though darkness rises, though rebellion spreads, God will always preserve his people. The real question is, when the final storm comes, when the last trumpet sounds, and when judgment falls once more, will you be found inside the ark?